David Tarrant, Managing Director of Mott MacDonald's Highway Transportation Division. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about asset management and I suppose the need for the UK to really embrace asset management and professionalise it. What do you think are the biggest challenges that we face with the infrastructure we have at the moment in terms of actually developing the proper asset management for it?
Well, actually, we've got a huge asset base in this country, and generally people have been looking after it very well in comparison with many other places. But it does need a constant, rigorous review of how that asset is operating in order for the whole thing to work properly. And I have to say that that requires some key people operating at both a strategic and operational level in order for us to really analyse what's going on.
Do you think clients are really understanding, I suppose, the link between CapEx and OpEx and making that balance, or getting that balance right?
I think we're seeing a huge change in that, actually. In fact, I think over the last couple of years we've seen clients thinking much more about the whole life of an asset rather than just what it costs in order to build it. They clearly then start to bring in what it costs to run it.
Yeah.
And that's also coming into our industry as well, in terms of the right sort of people who think about operational issues whilst they're designing whatever system it actually is.
We're seeing the rollout of new asset support contracts. Tell us a bit about those. How do they help?
Well, I think they help because you move away from a system where you've got to do X number of inspections and so on, or X treatments, to a much more risk-based approach. So you actually analyse what's really needed in order for the long-term benefit of the particular asset. So from that point of view, bringing more science and rigour into the whole approach.
Right, and that means, I suppose, utilising more the skills that companies like Mott MacDonald have got at their fingertips?
Yeah, very much so. And I think we're starting to see now, although asset managers have always been around, I think we're actually starting to see a new profession start to emerge around the whole life and asset management of a particular system, and in this case, highways.
Yeah. So this is getting young graduates or young people actually interested in asset management rather than just building and designing new shiny things.
Yeah, very much so, and that's all. Actually, that's an interesting point, because I think that's actually been part of the problem. People like building big new projects and have always regarded maintenance as the poor end, whereas clearly it isn't. So we tend now to cycle people through so they get that broad range of experience, and you really can start to then build the proper experience you need.
Okay. Big changes, of course, with the Highways Agency coming up. But how do you see that? Is that presumably a good thing?
I think it's a great thing, and in fact it's what the highways industry, and indeed the country, I think has been seeking for some considerable time.
Yeah.
So to see the whole thing enshrined in legislation, to give them the flexibility they need to operate, to move away from year-on-year programs to proper programming, all of that can only be of huge benefit to the nation.
But there must be presumably some concerns that you have there. I mean, the Select Committee had concerns. Do you have any concerns about the way that the Highways Agency is going to be transformed?
No, I don't actually. I think the way that the Select Committee, they raised some issues, but actually I believe that those issues have been covered, and that you do need some change within the government structure, i.e. to create a company in order to provide the flexibility necessary to deliver.
Yeah. Great time to be in roads, then great time to be in asset management, but we still seem to be struggling to get the right number of people. Any advice about that? How do we tackle that?
Clearly there is a long-term element, but I tend to think that we've had a lot of people who moved away from the highway sector to design things like BRT, LRT, and a lot of those innate skills are still there. So with an increasing programme, I believe we can draw back the right people, but ultimately we have to provide an exciting career with some great jobs, because that really inspires people to join.
Great stuff. And I suppose what you've heard from Lord Dighton this morning about the focus on infrastructure and the need to develop infrastructure as the route to growth, that all helps that process.
Very much so. And to get that long-term political consensus and a vision that infrastructure is important will actually start to draw people into our industry, I'm absolutely sure of it.
David Tarrant, Mott MacDonald, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.